Welcome to What the Flick, everybody. Ben, Alonso, Tim in the middle. Episode 5 of The Night of, Season of the Witch. And I think the most important part of this episode is, I suppose, what do we think of Naz's transformation? Or, as I read in the New York Times, they posed it really interestingly, or was it not that much of a transformation and we missed it? We decided who he was, and did we ignore hints?
Well, as is pointed out, he's got a lot of rage in him, you know.
When as Freddie points out,
secrets.
Right? Exactly, yeah. So there's obviously, the show presented a version of him and a version of the crime, and I think is now kind of going back and filling in a lot of blanks. But I think a case could also be made that this is also about what happens when you're in the system, even if you are innocent. You know, to survive just being in these quarters, what does that do to you? What do you have to become? And even if it's something that's inside you that's repressed, what do you have to call up out of yourself
or shit out the other end?
For that matter, to survive. Yeah. I mean, exactly. I mean, like, he's now a drug mule, for God's sake.
And that was very astute of Stone seeing.
To know what this was, yeah.
Subtle it was.
I thought the Amara Karen, who plays Chandra,
yeah.
I thought that was, again, a brilliant little piece of acting there, because she sees it too, but she's merely wide-eyed, but almost like knows I can't be too wide-eyed. Like,
right.
I want to go, right? And instead, I'm just going to
keep it together, keep it
together. Don't stare, don't stare, don't stare, don't stare, don't stare. And then what Turturro says to him is just terrific.
Yeah.
Like, I get it. I know you have to do this, but it's going to make our job impossible.
Well, and my first thought when he was shaving his head was like the optics, you know?
Yeah, totally. Right.
It's like, like, it's one thing to not wear the orange jumpsuit in court, but I mean, like, that's, you know, that's a thing that the jury sees, that the court sees, you know?
Yeah.
I didn't really get his motivation for doing that, because that's how the episode started, right?
I think the motivation is that he doesn't want to be thought of as soft and easy pickings, you know? So even with this protection he now has, he's trying to establish himself as like, don't fuck with me.
The image that he has to maintain for prison and the image that he wants for trial are working against each other right now.
Right. Well, it's the whole thing where he's not looking at the judge.
Right.
You know, and the judge says your client's not looking at me.
Right,
you know, it's like, well, because he's been told not to look at the people. You have to look at them, but not look at them. And,
but we presumed, you're making a presumption that's probably right. But your presumption is that he didn't look at the judge because he was told not to, and Glenn Headley did tell him don't stare. Or that he doesn't have some of this in him that we don't realize or didn't realize or presume, because this is the story of a good immigrant son from a good Muslim family, and he's in school and working and tutoring, and sure loves girls and loves sports too. He's Americanized, but and that those thoughts would run counter to that. I actually agree with you, and I think that the notion that when Freddie says, "Boy, you got a lot of rage in you," maybe he does have a lot of secret rage in him, or maybe arrested for a crime you didn't commit.
Yeah, I've got it now.
Right, and having your bed burned and had acid, homemade acid thrown on you.
And
maybe now
the guy you're beholden to say, hey, come beat this guy up, get your kicks in.
Yeah.
Right, that this is the only way I'm going to survive. Well, I guess, yeah, I'm very angry about this.
And this is before the punching bag, so this is sort of the first outlet he's had to kind of vent at all.
And some of that outlet might be from 23 years of being that good son, of never being able to say to your parents, "You're acting like a freaking idiot,"
and 15 years of being Muslim in this country.
Right, totally, that's right. So maybe entirely right. So that rage might not be a sign of, oh, look, because obviously what they want us to think, at least a little bit, and what we should think is that, well, maybe he's capable of this kind of violence, and maybe he killed that girl and got no blood on him.
Or anywhere else in the apartment.
Right. Yeah.
So at least now we're sort of exploring the oh, well, then who did it question, and so which brings us to
Dwayne Reed. That was a nice twist.
Yes.
His name is real, and DJ Williams, I think, is that actor's name. I didn't name him. It's not my fault that it's the same. It's not my fault it's the same name.
This show operates, I think, on a lot of interesting levels in terms of plot and theme and character. Like it's constantly sort of shuffling around what we think of people, and again, you know, the Turturro character who could have so easily been this kind of like, you know, aging hippie liberal lawyer type, you know, between his sex stuff and his eczema and everything else, like he's very human.
They've humanized him wonderfully.
Very, you know, there's a lot happening with that guy and just all the stuff and
trying to get a date with the hooker, like a real date.
It's like, I'm on the clock.
Yeah, and her saying the exact same things to the two straight guys, and he leaves sort of shameful, but the Viagra's working, at least.
Yeah.
Yeah.
and he's all dressed up and no place to go now, you know.
Yeah, I loved all that. I loved, and I think for me, you know, and I guess everybody will take away the things that they're most interested in, but the show opened with his I think it opened with his lessons in class, right, with his kid, right? He's in his kid's class, like,
right.
Bring your dad to work day, and the other
always
kids,
Hitler.
and the kids are always Hitler, and the teacher, you gonna jump in here? No, this is great. Yeah, you go right ahead. So the kids are, you know, they're simplistic about it. They're not.
Yeah.
They don't have a sophistication of thought. But to me, this episode proved, again, what I didn't need proven, but I want everyone to embrace with the same enthusiasm that I have, is that it doesn't matter whether they didn't do it. And we say it, but you have to know it. I mean, you saw that little moment of this is a team, the cops and the prosecutor and the judge. The coroner, right. So that scene with the coroner where she gets him to say the same thing in a different way, and she's like, all right, I buy that. Like,
and even right off the bat, he was like, well, what do you want it to say?
Right.
Which possibility would you prefer? Because I could say that.
What are we going for here?
Right. Doesn't matter what it actually is.
She knows not to hand him a piece of paper with say this, right? And the way she strikes, again, DJ Williams, Trevor off the list with,
right.
You know what? We're good. Go have a cookie. So, like, the system has got it in for you. And yes, you might have done it. But even if you've done it, it's not right that the system has it in for you. We know that when the Soviet Russia had the system in for you, we knew that was wrong, right? When the Stasi has it in for you, we know that that's wrong. But we have it in for you, and unless you're O.J. Simpson, who oddly enough did it, but at least that gives you a fighting chance.
Right. If you can't afford, to really mount a defense and you're innocent, the best you can hope for is this plea that will put you in jail for less time than you would have served had they thrown the full book at you, even though, again, you maybe didn't do it at all. You know.
That's right. And all of your action, all your ability to be an influencer in your own life is completely removed, and that's your only reasonable option. It's sickening, and it's sort of these public defenders or guys, more so guys like John Stone. Public defenders are in most places, as they said, are overwhelmed.
Yeah.
But like that is a noble fight to be, and you see it, and he's because he's so much more than a lawyer. Like that great question, how do you know this stuff? And he's like, I'm a lawyer. And the implication being, how do you not? You're not a real lawyer.
Right.
Real lawyers know this stuff, and real lawyers, when necessary, pick up a goddamn crowbar and go searching for a witness when it's obviously incredibly dangerous.
Right. And I think what we're going to see in all this is if, Naz or somebody like Naz is indeed innocent, and they still have to go through all this stuff, and even if it's just a question of having to spend time at Rikers waiting for trial, and then even if you go to trial and somehow manage to prove your innocence and get out, you are not coming out of the system the same person who went into the system. And so the system itself is tremendously flawed. And I mean, again, we don't know if Naz is innocent or not, but I'm saying if he is, and if he went in a fairly calm, sane person, like we're seeing this whole process bringing out the worst in him. And if he were to come out of it at the other end, as somebody who didn't commit the crime, he's going to be a more dead-eyed and dangerous version than the one who went in.
Yeah, all those little asides that Glenn Headley said, they're true. Like, and all the more reason why, again, another outrage. Like, he's from here. He's not going to flee.
Yeah.
He doesn't have a passport. He's not going to Pakistan. So let the parents put up their house.
Yeah.
And you should get out because he's not convicted. Like the system is so unbelievably tilted. So these noble warriors who defend the guilty, I love them.
Yeah. And even Turturro's like, take the plea. Like in another movie, you would expect him to be like, no, we got to fight. He's like, no,
12 years, 35?
I would love to be 35.
Right.
Yeah, take the plea.
Would Nas have taken the plea if he didn't have to say, I'm guilty, I did it? Like if there was a way where you could just say, hey, we don't want to waste taxpayers' money. You don't have to admit to anything, but will you go to jail?
Yeah, I mean,
that's the
no contest,
no
right?
right.
Yeah,
Plead
no
no
contender.
contest, right? No contender, right? You can. I don't know if that's not an option in New York or
in a murder trial.
Or in a murder trial.
But it seems like he would have, right?
Yeah,
it's just
maybe. Yeah, well,
pride
I think
on
he
the
was.
line.
If Chandra hadn't laid it out that way for him, like if you did it, take the plea. If you didn't, don't. Yeah, I mean,
Which is super naive of her compared to what everyone else was telling him.
That's right. That's right. But
not necessarily wrong.
But a defendable point, and of course an admirable point. You got a bunch of stuff written down. What do you do?
Yeah, I mean, I just so I don't forget what exactly happened, so we don't leave anything. We hit most of it. I'm still waiting for the box moment that I'm anticipating, where he finds that piece of evidence that really throws his own faith, because maybe Box fooled me. I'm waiting for him to be this good guy that's actually looking for the truth. But maybe that was just a show for Nas, and I fell for it too.
That's entirely right. That's the thing about Box, is he's just part of this system that chews people up, and once they make up their mind, there's no getting them off it. We've seen it in a zillion cases.
And maybe if he finds that contradictory thing, he'll just bury it somewhere.
Right, he'll reason
Because we know he's retiring.
or he'll explain it away in some other way, or he'll seize it. And I was thinking, is Turturro going to go to Box with Duane Reade? I don't mean literally with Duane Reade, but like, hey, you know that kid was lying. He wasn't alone. I found the other guy, and what do you know? He's a criminal and uses a knife in his crimes. I would say that's somebody worth investigating. Or do they not want to give them time to establish an acceptable alibi for Reade if they want to drop him on the jury at trial?
Now, have the cops discovered that back gate? Because it seems like the only person who ever notices it is Turturro.
Right, and then their investigator, they finally hired somebody.
The flat fee guy.
We've never seen that door thing yet, though.
No, we saw it before.
We saw the door, but we haven't seen it like not lock, not close, opportunity for.
I kind of thought that was the implication, because he was sort of standing there opening and closing it the first time he finds it.
I didn't get it the first time. I only got it this time.
Okay,
So,
maybe I'm misremembering, but I thought that was. I
didn't get that it was that. I didn't put together that accent. Of course, I just thought about the cat. I mean, I missed the whole damn point of it. The cat stuff is spectacularly.
Right. Well, I think he sees the cat going in and out, and he figures out that anybody else could open that gate, and then he takes the cat to the shelter to see if it belongs to anybody else or anybody who's going to claim it, and when they don't, then he rescues it back.
And they've obviously established that ketamine is a drug that can have you go get a glass of water and then sit down because you're tired and sleep for 2 hours.
Yeah, well, it is literally horse tranquilizer.
Yeah.
So what's the read on the Adderall then, on the amphetamine?
I don't see how that's. I don't see how that's super damaging to them, because the kid can say.
Because everybody thinks it is, but I didn't get that
I didn't get it
impression.
either. I mean, there's a way to explain. Yeah, I took it because you could paint that as to.
Because I'm a college student.
I'm a college student. I wake up at 6. I go to help my dad or my mom at work at the garment industry or whatever they're selling, and then I go to full-time student, and then I tutor the basketball players, and I'm the basketball team manager, and then I come home and I got to do my own work, and I get like 5 hours of sleep a night. So at best, yeah.
But still, I think there's a way for
the prosecution
for Jeannie Berlin to make that sound really terrible in a courtroom. It's illegal, and you're on speed, you're all blah, 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 and and especially with the whole now that she's got the footage of the taxi, and there's and I wanted to talk about that. This is, I know it's a little tinfoil hat of me, but there's so many movies now that use closed circuit cameras and sort of general surveillance of the citizenry as a way to solve crimes or a way to sort of accomplish plot things. And I can't help feeling like it's just sort of bit by bit making us used to and accepting of the constant state of surveillance.
Maybe. It's certainly, whether it's intent or not, I mean,
it's normalizing it.
It's definitely normalized. My hunch is all just liability. That's why people put cameras up. They're all in an effort to protect themselves in some way from getting sued, which is what motivates us for everything. But you've been to Europe, obviously. You got family there, and so but when you go to Europe, and I've barely been, but when I was there in 2012, you get struck by wow, there are cameras everywhere in a way that I still don't note here.
Have you seen that picture online? You know how in England, on the sort of historical buildings, they have the round thing that, like, so such and such author or whatever lived here. There's one like George Orwell lived here next to a camera.
Is that right?
Yes.
That's awesome.
I find that trend is also seen in enhanced interrogation. I see a lot of times like torture is effective when the bad guys need it, and Jack Bauer beats
24,
somebody up,
right, totally,
saves
yeah,
the
yeah,
day.
yeah.
But I see it all the time now, and I'm like, oh my God, are we just like going to be okay with this now?
Yeah, well, that's
Yeah, Zero Dark 30, that was the thing that
24 and
people-
Zero Dark 30.
yeah.
They have the effect of normalizing it. And for at least for 24's makers, that partly was their intent.
Yes.
They were into delivering that message. Zero Dark 30, it seemed
A little fuzzier. yeah.
ancillary. Yeah. Last thing, because the New York Times sort of they condemned Freddie, as sort of amoral. But I don't know. Freddie, to me, I mean, Freddie's putting a beating on a guy who earned a beating in that prison world under that prison code, and he didn't kill any of them. He just, he laid down his. How long is Freddie in Rikers for? I guess the trial is going to be many years before he goes to trial.
Yeah, it doesn't seem to be getting in his way at all.
How about just real quick? I loved they did this show again. Rikers has been such a. Tim and I talked about it last week, but Rikers is such a big part of television for guys of our generation. Certainly, Alonso. Like every show, you're always talking about Rikers, and all you get out of Rikers is like lawyers meeting with clients or cops pulling skells out.
It's like Sing Sing in the 30s.
Right, right. And here we're getting Rikers, like a real Rikers is a character here, and just to see the situation that Nas was in, and that group home, right, the hideous group home where you get the baby oil and the hot water thrown at you, so that they managed to take him to a cell not much bigger than Mandela's cell, right? A hideous, awful, sterile, horrible place.
And it's like,
oh my God, I got a desk, I got a bed, nobody's gonna ship me at night.
I have walls, thank God,
walls. I
walls.
can put stuff up, I can lean back, I got my own thoughts. This is great, no problem.
Stone walls do not a prison make.
It was really, that's great. That's really effective storytelling. Anyway, great stuff.
Yes.
As usual. I literally cannot wait till next week. It's very, very troubling. And my DVR cut off 10 seconds into next week on the night of. And it was screaming at
I'm making myself not look.
I know they don't. I know I can't help it. I can't go a week. It's too hard.
I hear you.
Too hard. Thanks, guys, and thanks everybody for watching.